So every movement that we can do has the capacity to create function or breed dysfunction.
Okay.
There's not one exercise that cannot go to either one for each and every individual for us. Name an exercise that could be functional for somebody, dysfunctional for the other.
Yeah.
So to me, the term is just too general.
Above the foot? And if not, how far can you let the knee come in?
There has to be a lot of variables to consider.
Yeah.
How much load am I using? What direction am I doing the movement in? What is the intent of the exercise to begin with?
Okay.
So many of us, if we view, what would you say is the typical perception of the knee joint? What kind of joint do we traditionally view that as? A hinge. Now, if we view
resistance training, you're going to damage the end plates of the bones. I think that's where a lot of
Yeah.
the issue come from. I think the research in the last 5 to 10 years has pretty much disproved that theory.
Okay.
And, you know, you can't just say to someone, "Oh, you're not 14 years old yet. You can't lift something heavy." You know, it's like, you know, people are told they can't lift weights after they've had a baby for a certain period of time. But what about someone that's got 2 young children?
Yeah.
You've still got to pick them off the ground, right? They're still resistance training.
Okay. Max, you want to elaborate on that?
I just think there's
Same neural pathways, but it generally sends it back to the muscles.
Okay.
And what often happens is it will either spasm or inhibit the muscle. So what I'm really saying is you could have a client with a food intolerance and that could cause inhibition of their abdominal wall. If they've got inhibition of the abdominal wall, it's going to reduce their ability to have good motor control.
Okay. So eat good, feel good, and move a lot. Okay, next one. Oh shit.
Not something that you're necessarily doing permanently, or you're doing it based on volume of training. So, as everything we've said, it kind of depends on the purpose, but I would not absolutely say that orthotics are bad. I think because of the orientation of the foot in relationship to gravity, how the ligaments can become lax over time, especially in females, postmenopausal females, it can be even a greater issue. So you can use that to your advantage within your training, combine it with other things, but again, like everything else, it depends.
Okay.
And they might have a functional leg length discrepancy, which means if you correct other parts of the body, the legs become equal. What happens quite often is people go and see a specialist, they see they've got a leg length discrepancy, but they don't understand the difference between a structural and a functional, and straight away they give them an orthotic. And all you're doing then is perpetuating the imbalance. Okay?
Okay.
If someone has a structural leg length discrepancy, which is best monitored with an X-ray, then that might help rebalance the body by giving them an orthotic to balance out the length of the legs. If someone's given an orthotic to control pronation, that's a real problem. Because if someone's over-pronating because they've got weakness in the abdominal wall, if they've got weakness in the gluteus muscles, what you're having is you've got a situation where you've got medial rotational instability at the hip, okay, which is causing pronation of the leg. If you then put an orthotic in the foot to stop it pronating, what you've now got is the femur internally rotating on a tibia that's not moving.
Yeah.
And what you're creating is excessive torsion through the knee joint.
Yeah.
So you might have fixed the problem, but then you've caused another one in the knee, probably going to blow their ACL eventually.
Okay.
That was pretty much it. It's very effective for us because then we can see, you know, what type of person is coming to us that day. Because if somebody's moving with less range of motion, or now the mechanics aren't smooth, they're not rhythmical, then that might be a different person than you had the other day. It could have been lack of sleep, could have been massive stress, it could have been still, they're not recovered from the last workout.
Okay, so Max, if you...
So if I was going to use every assessment technique that I've got on a client, it'd probably take me half a day to do it.
That's
Okay?
good business.
We don't do every assessment on every client because it's just not necessary. We do a lot of static measurements. Now some people say, well, that doesn't always carry over to function, and that's true. So that's why we also do movement screens. So we do 2 main things. The first thing we do, we assess people in what we call infant development movements. So we try to get people to replicate movements they would have done through different stages of their infant development.
Okay.
If they were, if they miss a pattern or they had a faulty pattern during infant development, it normally shows up when you move as an adult. Because the first 12 months of life, we spend training to be able to stand on 2 feet and to walk. That's the gold standard of infant development, is walking. That's one of the most highly neurological things that we can do as a human being, certainly as a child. From then, we also screen what Paul calls the 7 primal patterns. So squatting, lunging, bending, pushing, pulling, twisting, and gait. And we assess gait, walking, running, and sprinting.
Okay.
So we see what level someone's able to do, and then we want to know what level they need to get to, and then we train them up to that level.
Okay. So a lot of assessment with you guys.
Yeah, because if you're not assessing,
You're just guessing.
you're guessing.
Okay, Lex, look.
What it does for the nerves. It's the only way to train? No. For any of you guys that took my sessions, that's not the only way to train. Okay, but to say, because then he's going to go the opposite direction and say that functional is the only way to go. Well, guess what? Too much of anything besides sex is a bad thing. Okay, so I don't agree. I don't agree that CrossFit is terrible and that it's not the way to go about. I think that there's some things that they've missed. I think that there's some things that they've certainly...
Picture with a brush that covers all people all the time. And I think he thrives on that controversy and that conflict. I have no time for that bullshit. I really don't.
Which is the same as what CrossFit does as well, right? You're either with us or against us.
Right.
So what he's trying to do is fight fire with fire. So what he's doing there is he's trying to gain attention of the people that dislike CrossFit. And he's trying to get them on their side. That's all he's trying to do. He's trying to create controversy there.
Okay, so Derek, if you had to change 2 things about CrossFit, what would you change?
He's too mean.
I can't speak on that because I've never done CrossFit.
Okay, fair enough.
It's unfair for me to pass judgment on something I've never done.
That's we have to respect that. Max, did you do CrossFit?
I also didn't do a lot of other things in my life on which I have an opinion upon. But what I did, I studied it. I had clients coming to my place after they've been doing CrossFit, and I looked into their programs and I watched trainings. I did trainings, but I cannot say I'm doing CrossFit in the sense I'm a practitioner of CrossFit.
Okay.
And I agree with what's been said now. I mean, it's a very good commercial way to play us against the world. CrossFit did it, he does it. If someone else wants to do it, it's a good way to catch attention. Using media, good. Whatever message you have, it's a good way to spread a message. We can agree with the message or not, but if you made his name on YouTube, it doesn't really necessarily mean he's a good person. The number of views on YouTube say nothing about your knowledge or skills. They can say about your popularity. So if it's popularity you're after, it's a good choice. And I think back to the CrossFit idea, there are also a lot of sports that are locked in one plane.
You know, it's enabled a lot of people to get moving. That's a definite plus. Okay. What I think the biggest weakness of CrossFit is that it allows people to do very highly technical movements under quite a high load when they're fatigued, and when most of them don't have the flexibility, the stability, and the strength to be able to do it in the first place.
Okay.
If in some way they could improve the way that they train people before they do those movements, then it will be a much safer and more effective system.
Okay.
I'm thinking of inventing a new version of it. It's going to be called CheckFit. If no one else nicked that name, okay, it's mine.
Body integrated. So every part of the body, every part of the being is participating into what we're asking it to do. And the second component to that, if we're talking about movement-based training versus muscle-based training, from a movement-based training approach, I'm looking for the body's ability to mitigate stress to the system and not necessarily trying to isolate stress to one area. Because at the end of the day, the body's looking for movement efficiency, which means the less energy I expend, the better. And what's interesting is in our industry, it's all about how much energy can I expend.
Yeah.
But really from a movement quality perspective is how well can I move to where I expend less energy and take advantage of this amazing architecture that I have, which is built to capture energy and use that captured energy to help us move better.
Okay. So